Hello and welcome to the Pain Podcast, Le Pup, presented by Le Pup Scientifique. And we're here again. My name is Bart from Buchem. I'm a pain specialist physiotherapist, and with me is founder of Le Pup Scientifique, Timmy Beams. Well,
Hello.
I'm
Good
looking.
start there, Bart. Like, it's just so smooth.
Oh, I'm so sorry. We're
Uh,
just discussing. We had a hard 24 hours, headwinds and challenges along the way, families and so on. So, like anyone's. I'm looking particularly forward to this episode because we're gonna discuss beyond exercise, and we're just here to see if we can find some common frustration with prescribed exercises, reframing movement away from rigid prescriptions toward lived embodied experiences. But that's a mouthful. That's how can we motivate being meaningful in exercise, because it's something prescription in my view is like giving the right dose and meaningfulness and making sure there's a shift in behavior or a shift in possibilities instead of a protocol. So that would be probably a nice title, something like for this podcast, which we always come up after the recordings. Which one?
Instead of protocolized movement. Yeah. Totally.
Probably.
I have, we were talking before, weren't we? And it is frustrating in some ways because, in essence, and this isn't that everybody's doing something wrong, but in order for us to optimize we know, and everybody knows as well, don't they? Like, it's your patients don't come to you and go, "Oh, I didn't know that movement was good for me." Like, there's a known quantity, isn't it? Like eating the right food and getting good sleep. People know these things, but they don't always engage in it. And then when, a common thing that I hear is, that people, like, even the word exercise, it's almost like that disengages someone from that process as well. Oh God,
It's like the back to school thing, for some people. So let me run through you can expect this session. So we're gonna into the problem with prescribed exercises, the power of meaningful movement. We're thinking of, let's see, if prescription could create possibilities instead of protocolized movement prescriptions. We're going to talk about play, curiosity, and in the end, we're probably going to summarize, is it as good as we can, and see what we can come up with. But this is going to be a very conversation between Tim and myself from our clinical experience. And everything that we've learned through our Le Pup community, which is a whole range of amazing people who have contributed to help us be more comfortable and confident in treating pain, which is a challenge every day, and it's big fun. But we also need a little bit of a heads up from each other. So this episode will dive into the prescription and exercises that we give people when they go home. So probably that's a good starting point. So what do you think? So you basically said to him that even the word exercise or prescription to some degree could be also have this negative effect on how people interpret it, and maybe somehow puts them off. And that's exactly the opposite what you want.
Exactly. Yeah. And movement at one point isn't the same as movement at another point, or exercise. So if someone is in pain, the association of doing movement that may typically have caused pain, why would I want to engage in something like that? So there needs to be some sort of known awareness of around what you're trying to do. So there's challenges basically, aren't there? And the challenges, I think, are beyond just the ability to be able to perform, in the correct way, which also I would say that deliberately because our backgrounds, both as physios, I'm sure, a lot of our education was about, performing something correctly. And I think that loses people, first of all, in some respects, but it also loses ultimately what we're trying to do with activity and movement, which is create more opportunities and possibilities to engage in life in the future. And that means being able to do things in a variety of different ways, in a variety of different situations, at different times, with different people, with and without maybe aids, etc., to facilitate that process. But I think, and often an assumption comes back that I hear. I mean, this is just a reflection of me. Is that exercise almost like it's associated with gym, and people will even say to me, "I'm not a gym goer," or "I don't like that," or "You're not one of these physios who gives people, gym exercises." So, and obviously there will be people out there who thrive with that as well.
Yeah. People, so give me 10 exercises I can perform every day to solve whatever I need to solve, which is an interesting. So let's try to separate these two groups. So people who thrive with exercise, probably would be very helpful for them to receive this prescription, maybe even into detail, like into the depth of the detail. You feel like, oh, maybe that's not so helpful. So in my experience, sometimes for people who need or require, or they think they require these type of exercises, I would probably provocatively, deliberately do not give them this prescription as they would expect, just to basically, not to tease them, but instead of over relying on exercises, sitting with the idea of, well, probably it's something, this exercise is going to fix me, right? But in most of the times, it's about changing behavior, changing routines, changing things, or getting insights or gaining insights in how things are actually evolving, or probably you have to act earlier on instead of waiting for the exercise. So there are so many reasons for even whether you want to use the word exercise or using it as a thing. So I think that's probably a good starting point. So if it wouldn't be exercise, because you would expect your patient would probably not, that wouldn't go down well, because they would say like, no, I'm not a gym type of person. I'm not a yogi. I'm not into Pilates. So how would you go about that? What's your strategy?
Yeah, well, we've used a couple of the words already, and let's, obviously people listening to this podcast, they know we're talking about people in pain. I'm looking for the ability to engage in some sort of activity. You're getting your body working for you, engaging in something that has some sort of meaning behind it or value behind it. Otherwise, why are we doing it? But we don't always know what that might look like until we try it as well. So there's a sort of exploration phase for many people. And it might include going to a gym. I wouldn't discount that, because I have people where they'll be doing a sort of more rigid, structured workout with set routines. But for many of the people that I'm seeing where pain is, a significant constraint or barrier and challenge, then for me, it's about looking for different opportunities to be able to move in a variety of different ways. Multiple times in a day as well. So, instead of it being, once a day or once every 2 days or whatever that might be, I'm looking to see how can we create many different opportunities through a day. And I think repetition is helpful on one level, but the sort of reframing of an association, and perhaps the association is something simply like, when I move, I'm in pain. And what we're really trying to do is we're trying to create an opportunity that when I move, I might not be in pain, or it might be a different type of pain, or it's a sort of pain that I'm okay moving with. Or so that's a big part of what I'm initially trying to do when I'm exploring movement with my patients.
Yeah. So is that like creating relevance? as well as part of the exploration phase?
I think it's creating relevance. It's creating some autonomy and empowering someone to be able to explore and be okay exploring, and that can be a part of it, and not just can be, but is an important part of it as well. So yeah, and I suppose this comes back to, I mean, we've set our stalls out of saying rigid prescription, but we might still be prescribing, we're saying it's important that you move. It's important that you find ways of engaging in activity, but it doesn't have to be the same every single time. So yeah, that's that. And the reframing of that, I think, is an important thing, which goes alongside knowledge and understanding and what have you in your body and the experience as well.
So there's also this notion of co-creation. Sometimes you just have to tell what to do, otherwise it would be co-creation. Where do you think co-creation would fit in? Is that also this exploration phase, or do you feel like this is more the phase where you start to prescribe, like, all right, let's go try this for the next 2 weeks. This is your challenge, if you like.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, look, I think that's an important initiator, even, because you're saying, how possible is it? Do you think you've got time? Have you got time in your life? How are we going to fit this into your life? And there's a bunch of different questions, and what might movement, right? What would you be happiest doing as well? So yeah, there's a whole bunch of really powerful questions that can help that dynamic as well. So yeah, I would say that's initially an important part. The other thing I was going to say on that point is that we don't know what the right amount is often with pain. So it is a bit of exploration.
So what is there a framework for you would consider?
There are frameworks, aren't there? Yeah. So I think something that I often use with people is a traffic light scenario. So we'll have green, everything feels fine. Okay, you're good to go. Orange might have a bit of soreness, bit of pain, but you're okay with that. And I'll spend time going through sort of cost benefit and analysis as well with people, and talking about a sort of sweet zone that we want to work in. And a red would be a, no go, if you get into this point, then stop. Give yourself a little bit of time away from that. So
yeah, that's where you mentioned finding the sweet zone, which is quite critical, or is a concept on its own, right? Finding this, because it's not too, so there's a too little, there's a too much, and there's a sweet zone. And my experience, if you use this concept, the sweet zone for people in pain is very tight.
Exactly.
It's very hard to find the sweet zone. It could be challenging. Yeah. What else? Just to add, just to get in some neuroscience here and understanding of, for example, things like wind up, or how hyperalgesia signs or improvement in pain, how it evolves by repetition, for example. So what would be quite nice way? So you put out the traffic lights. So what would be red would be by repetition the pain increases. Period. Right. So that could be your red thing, if you like.
Increases, maybe builds afterwards as well.
And even builds. Yeah. But if it eases or it plateaus, it might be orange, if you like, and green will be you don't feel it's not even there, or it's there but it's okay, or it doesn't, or it even eases, right? It makes it's getting better whilst you're doing it more often. Yeah. So, but there is this case where you like self-treatment type, when people like poking themselves, and sometimes it has this very short-term relief, but after that it flares up massively. So that could be a reason for, say, probably not the greatest thing to do at that stage, but I think co-creation also, you have to include this this self this self-help type of understanding, when you can maintain, or you have to pause, or you probably just have to quit or stop doing it.
That's it. Yeah. You're absolutely right. I wanted to jump in here because it's because there are situations where there might be a delayed effect as well. And if you're only looking at that time point, when I'm doing exercise, how does it feel? You lose that information, you lose that data as such. So the ability to be a little bit explorative, but with some, you're being sort of carefully, respectfully explorative. You find these things out. And I'm thinking about a conversation I had yesterday actually with a lady with CRPS, where it's looking like there is a sort of delay effect. And it's so difficult because pain is such a massive feature for her, but it's so difficult to sort of make sense of it until we've run a few sort of careful experiments, if you want. So to find out what the right dose is, what the right type of activity engaging is, etc. To begin with, it does require a little bit of careful exploration.
So we're sort of moving into the effect of exercise, right? But you won't hear people, I did too little. Saying 9 out of 10, 99 out of 100, there will people say, I did too much. It's way too much. So that's a bit of that's an interesting one, because it's because I did exactly the same routine as they did the day before, but after all, it was too much. Any thoughts on that situation, which is because it's very common in my experience?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Again, we just had that conversation beforehand, and I've just been on a call with someone where we're saying, she said, I just don't know what more I can do. And I was like, could you just stop doing stuff? Could you give yourself a bit of time off doing things? So yeah, you do often hear that, don't you? You do hear, and people, it's not for want of trying. People are trying, they're working hard, but it's almost like they're working too hard. And just coming away from that is important.
Yeah.
And that, I suppose, brings us, we're going to have a whole bunch of different sort of offshoots of conversation here, because exercise or activity, I don't think it should be a standalone prescribed thing to them, because we should consider the setting up and the coming away from the cooling down or the calming down, including inactivity or rest that might go alongside it. So even pauses. So, if you want to create hypertrophy in muscles, then you need to have a gap to allow that sort of process to materialize, don't you?
Yeah. Well, that's sort of, you just said that there is this, it's not just about the exercise, not about the volume or the reps itself, but it's also creating, and I think correct me if I'm wrong, but you were just saying that you also have to create a space or a context that actually can be helpful. So just even before performing the exercise or whatever the prescription will be, you have to get into the, let's say, the right mindset or the right feeling or context in general, just to sort of maybe even sort of making sure you're not overacting or missing things that probably are also related to the effect after all. So what my experience, some people say I did exactly the same, but the context or the conditions were very different. Not you saying you have to create this condition that's always the same, but it's on the other end. So if blaming the exercise, so I shouldn't do this anymore because it made my pain worse. And I think it's quite important to sort of trying to catch some of these contextual factors that may have created or influenced the reason why people are saying, oh, this is a bad exercise, because it made my back hurt more, rather than say, well, probably I was a bit tired. I was a bit distracted, or I was a bit frightened at some point and didn't have that
rushing
before.
to get it done and finished because I know I've got to do it in the day, and I was running out of time.
Exactly.
And stuff like
Yeah. So, so that sweet zone training, if you like, that's quite a sophisticated training. Is that you would consider as part of? How much time would you use or take to prescribe and explore these exercises before even prescribing it?
That's a great question, and that's what I would be doing to begin with. So I wouldn't aim to be giving people too many, if we want exercises, too many things to do. But understanding why you're doing it, and thinking about the effects, and having some ability to be able to modify and control, and be in charge, have agency of what you're doing, I think is a key, the beginning part, for me.
So and to make it meaningful, we touched on things like playful, habitual movements that were lost, and also co-creation in that regard. So
there's a couple of sorry, I'm jumping in again, aren't I?
great. No, that's good.
I feel like I want to do, there's so much here that we can talk about, but there's fitting it into your day, there's finding time, and the evidence looks like we need to do things quite a lot. So how do we find time, and pairing it, stacking it, whatever you want to call it, with other activities or other things that you do in a day is important. Knowing that when I get up in the morning, I do my exercise, or when I go and boil the kettle for a cup of tea, this is when I do this activity, is one thing. But then as you were saying about mind state, but doing it with perhaps curiosity, being, if you can, taking away the natural judgment that some of us have over what we should feel like, or how we should move, or how well this is going, or something. So curiosity can mean a lot of different things as well, and exploration, I think, fits curiosity. And then we've got other sort of avenues of perhaps an emotional state that we might be able to manifest as well. So how and what you do and how you explain it can create some really rich experiences that are more playful, more joyful, more exciting as well. And that setting up, and these can include pairing things with music, or doing it with someone else, or having some sort of visualized process, or maybe trying to do I'm thinking about stuff that I would do. It would be pretend to be a tiger or a gorilla, or bring in something that is kind of sort of, to begin with, quite silly and a little bit playful, but it can create some joyful experiences as well with that.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is that the introduction is it's exploration from both sides. So you suggest, and you can go beyond reps and sets, obviously, by adding contextual factors and trying. So when people, and I think that, because I agree, because exercise probably wouldn't be a one-off, right? So it's not the exercise that you would stick with the whole time. So that requires some reflection. So people will get back to the next session and they reflect. So what I sort of picked up more recently is how to discuss this type of, so instead of saying, did you do the exercises? That's probably a no-go to say that. So did you do them? So rather than basically asking for, your own curiosity. So how do you experience it? Is there anything you want to add? How would you think this reflection of exercises, how you could shape that, or introducing it once people have probably tried things or not, they maybe not have done it?
I mean, totally. Like thinking in the short term, finding a way of taking agency of self and body back, and being the one who's in charge of your movement, and lessening the sort of protective nature that might be wrapped around that for you. But ultimately, if we're sort of stretching into the future, we recognize that movement is a really powerful part of well-being, in human. So how do we create the possibilities long into the future that movement and exercise might be a part of that person's life, and therefore sustained well-being as well for them. So yeah, I think we can think about things on different temporal levels, can't we?
Yeah. Well, it's there's a scenario when people say I didn't do the exercise because I didn't have the time or I didn't felt comfortable doing it. I did it once and then I forgot about it.
Exactly.
It somewhat tells you that you probably have to explore more and better.
I think, yeah, and do you know what? And this is something that I'd obviously say when I'm teaching as well, is I used to think that was the patient's fault. And I think I was educated to think that's their fault. You know, they've been bad for not doing their exercise. But actually what I realize now is it's more likely to be on me and us from a co-creation point of view of going, we just didn't plump on the right thing. You know, we haven't found the thing that ticks for you. So, okay, so what was it about that? Do you feel like we should continue with it? How about we try and find something else? What might that look like? You know, how are we going to, and there are constraints, aren't there, of being able to engage in certain things in our life. So if you are a single parent with 2 kids, both at school age, and you're, both working and providing, where do you have time to be able to bring that into your life? So it is about working with what's possible in you and in your life.
Yeah, and there's also this expectation part when an exercise is how likely is it that the exercise will decrease the pain, or is it even the goal? I can't remember. Well, there are some pain management tools like breathing kind of type strategies could potentially ease pain in a way, or using distraction. But most exercises are not usually not really aiming to do so, right? They have different reasons for doing it. But in let's say the paining patient is probably seeking for pain reduction in some way, and then the exercise is obviously not going to provide that necessarily. So on expectations is it's very important to see what is it doing, why is this exercise, and what is actually the success, or let's say what's the factor for success in this exercise, or how do you measure your success rating? Oh, I did this exercise for the whole week 10 times a day and my pain is still there.
Yeah.
Which
And
obviously
we're
saying
probably not looking on the right time frame, are we?
not really, I guess. Yeah. But on the other end, so people say, oh, I did this exercise and actually my pain moved, or let's reduced by 50%. I'm not sure whether it would be the exercise that has decreased. We don't know. But you could.
Sometimes, do you care? If if they're going to engage in that in the future, awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's also a risk of people when the pain flares up and they stick with the exercise and they realize that, bullshit exercise. But it may be part of the puzzle at some point. So I always I'm tend to sort of start very, very small with what I kind of like, and you probably can relate to that, Tim. Then you have to have an embodied experience in the clinic, in the consultation, that you can exercise the exercise, or you can explore the exercise together instead of putting it on like a piece of paper and sending people out and just figure it out and see how it goes. That's a way of doing it, but that's probably not very specific. I think when it's specific, you probably have to figure out what it is and how it feels and what the objective or the goal might be, and then people can take this experience so they can refer to the experience they've had in the clinic, and then I think it's more likely that it will succeed instead of sending people away with a set of like videos and beautiful drawn stuff. You probably just have to go through the sequence and doing it, step by step, for some at least.
Yeah, and it might include some of that.
Yep.
Some people want a fairly, detailed plan of this is what I'm going to do, this is how much I'm going to do it, and you can figure that out and hopefully not plump for the old 3 times 10 lots of something, but come up with something a bit more novel and interesting that's going to allow them to remember it. I often plump for weird numbers like 7.5. Try 7.5 of these, or 2 1/3 of those, or something like that.
Oh, that's great.
A way of just making it sort of a bit more meaningful and easier to remember. But even if you have the sort of, you're prescribing some numbers and an amount in a day in a particular exercise, but give them the freedom to explore and experiment with that as well, and to try it with or without music on, or with or without someone around them, or as a sort of mental exercise before they lead into that exercise, or whatever, and reflect as well on how that went.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the interesting bit, but I really liked your 2.5 or 2 3/4.
Oh, you can nick it if you want. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
it is great. Or using, just throw out a number. That's just your number, right?
Yeah.
So I think it could, and it is just crosses my mind, is predictability. So if on rep number 6 it always starts, well, you can do 3, see what happens, and then you can do 10 and next. And if you just roll the dice, that's your number. That's today's thing. And I really like to create this unpredictability, or at least creating something novel and maybe some reward in it, which just makes it really interesting to sort of prevent the prediction. And from a, let's say, predicting process type of thinking, you probably say, well, an exercise never should be the same. It should always challenge you in some way, do something different. And I think different, or even 2.25 probably will be a way of putting that up and challenge the average. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and we're dropping into sort of topics, we haven't expressly said it, but graded exposure and environmental enrichment and things like this. And there are movement abundance and variability. There are whole areas that we could jump into, but the practical putting it into place is recognizing that there might be a bit of stigma associated with asking someone to move or exercise, and not dismissing that, but working with it, and then opening up some awareness and understanding of what pain might mean to them, and hopefully reducing fear to the point where they're happy to engage in some activity, but making that activity a bit more novel, interesting, so they can be curious, they are in control of it, they can try and explore, and they're also not too judgmental on how well that went, but curious and open to what that means, and figuring out where dosing might be for them at a particular time.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the dose at that time isn't the dose that they should stick to. So things change over time as well, don't they? So there's some more complexity later on, once we've found the ability to engage in meaningful, valued movement and exercise in someone's day and life.
Yeah. So this variability and value probably comes with that an exercise should represent real life to some extent. So if it's too modeled and protocolized, it's probably not how life works. But protocolized could be helpful for some people. I think that's a good summary, like a recap what we've done. If that's all right, trying. Yeah. Oh shit. I had some takeaways from this. I think movement, especially when movement is exercise and prescribed exercises, should be meaningful. Could be, some people would be helpful to co-create. It has to be an elevated experience, exploring and finding ways to find the sweet zone. And that can be like a whole process on its own. It's very unlikely that it will happen in one session. So that's something as a part. And I think when you exercise with people, thinking of in the back of your mind, so we are constantly exploring then your therapeutic approach in people in pain could be very exciting, because you never know where you're going to end up. But you have this ongoing curiosity that will elicit the next step. And therefore, like a protocol, you can use a protocol for like a short time, amount of time. But in the end, you probably have to move on, because reality is requiring more emergent properties than a linear thinking. Probably for you guys listening, we think that if you use or focus on sessions with exercise, you probably just focus on the variability, the value in the movement exercise prescription. Be more creative. Just allow yourself to challenge yourself and people. For patients that they have to also be in an active part of this thing called exercise prescription. So tell people that what you love, what you like to do, set your boundaries, but also allow yourself to explore these possibilities. So in a nutshell, I'm not sure if I touched all the things we've done. Probably we discussed too much, just to summarize it in a short thing. But I think hopefully this will be very helpful for you, just to get your head around exercise prescription and to broaden up and get yourself in a creative mode and improve there and feel more comfortable with prescribe in this way. Yeah. Any add-ons?
And let us know how it goes as well. We'd love to hear how people go with this sort of knowledge as well. And you might be doing it already and have some wonderful ideas and suggestions to share with others.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to hear from you. All right. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to have a look at our website. I think while we release this session, there will be sessions. Tim, you got, hopefully I got you got my back here. Who's the next episode on the clinical discussions, or so the clinical confidence series?
A couple more with Bernhard. Next up, Irene Vicky. We're looking at radiculopathy nerve root lesions and understanding the sort of clinical picture, diagnosing it, using bedside test, how confident you can be in the results that you get, the sort of clinical toolkit that you might use, and how we go about empowering patients to engage in rehab process. That's the next things that are coming up. Yeah.
Wow. Well, looking forward to that. Cool. Right. Thank you for listening. Have a great day and catch you later.